Literature gives us the opportunity to experience lives, perspectives, and worlds different from our own. Though remember, friend, a good story has many readings, and this is but one. In June of 1942, while World War II raged around them, 13-year-old Anne Frank and her 4 friends formed a ping pong club. They initially called the club Little Dipper after the constellation because they thought it only had 5 stars. And when they learned it had 7, they renamed their club Little Dipper -2. Just a month later, she was hiding with her family in a secret annex above a warehouse, where Anne recorded all of her experiences in her now famous diary. Now, you're almost certainly familiar with the major details of her life, but in the interest of making sure we never forget, let's honor Anne Frank's life by looking at her diary once more. Thanks so much to HelloFresh for helping us talk about important works in literature. So you haven't read The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. Or maybe you've only read the version of it that was heavily edited by her father. Or maybe your local school board pulled it from the curriculum, so you're just getting around to it now. No matter the reason though, let's discuss why her writings still resonate to this day. This diary of a literal young girl has allowed generations of people to read a first-hand account of the horrors of the Holocaust and to form an emotional bond with one of the atrocity's millions of Jewish victims. Anneliese Marie Frank, known to her friends as Anna, was born in 1929 in Frankfurt. Shortly after the Nazi Party came to power, her family moved to Amsterdam, where she quickly learned to speak and write Dutch. And she received her diary with a red and white checkered cover for her 13th birthday on June 12, 1942. In early entries, Anne introduces us to her friends, Hannelie, San, Jacques, and Ilse, the other members of the Little Dipper -2 ping pong club. And she also tells us about her suitors, notably a smitten young man named Halo, and a little about her beloved cat Morchi. And while she describes some of the restrictions placed on Jews in Amsterdam since the Netherlands capitulated, she mostly relates totally ordinary teenage stuff. And then, everything changes. Anne describes how her sister Margot receives a call-up letter from the SS, a demand she turn herself in to be taken to a work camp. Her parents, Otto and Edith, had been preparing for something like this and made plans to hide out in a secret annex in a building where Otto owned a business. Early in the morning of July 6th, the Franks left their home forever, wearing several layers of clothing and carrying as much as they could without arousing suspicion. Anne was heartbroken to leave Murchi and her close friends behind. At the secret annex, Anne meets the Van Peels. In her diary, she gives them the pseudonym the Van Dons, the family friends with whom they'll share the annex. Herman, August, their son Peter, and his cat Maushi. They're later joined by Fritz Pfeffer, a dentist who becomes Anne's roommate. And of course, we meet the people who are protecting them. Miep Gies, Johannes Kleeman, Victor Kugler, and Beth Voskejel. Miep is particularly important in the history of Anne's diary. After Anne and the other residents of the annex were betrayed to the Germans, it was Miep who collected all of Anne's writings and hid them for her. And when Otto Frank, the only survivor of the family, returned to Amsterdam and received word that both Anne and Margot were confirmed dead, Miep handed the diaries to him saying, "Here is your daughter Anne's legacy to you." According to the Anne Frank house, after reading the diary, Otto decided that Anne's words were an important human document. Though he omitted some of the parts he felt were too personal, particularly passages where Anne was critical of her mother, he published the first Dutch edition in 1947. Anne wrote about her desire to have her work shared after the war, and her father honored her legacy. It's since been translated into over 70 languages, turned into a critically acclaimed play, an award-winning film, and informed generations of the horrific consequences of anti-Semitism. The diary's enduring appeal is also in no small part due to the quality of Anne's writing, putting on full display her experiences that are at once horrifying and familiar. While the constant terror of living in hiding and the shadow of the Nazi pogrom hangs over the whole diary, there are many moments where Anne just tells us about her normal teenage experiences throughout it all, fighting with her mother, envying her older sister, and falling in love with her annex mate Peter. Another reason the work is so powerful is Anne's choice to format the diary as a series of letters to an invented confidant named Kitty, whom she often addresses using the you pronoun. This gives the reader the feeling that she's writing directly to them. And by the end of reading the diary, you do really start to feel like you're the one on intimate terms with her. Anne also ruminates deeply on her own identity and beliefs about humanity. While she's well aware of the atrocities committed against the Jews, she maintains a growing sense of hope as the Allies land in Normandy and start to push their way into Nazi territory. In a famous entry written on July 15, 1944, she said she still believes people to, essentially, be good at heart. And in her final entry, Anne laments that she has to keep hiding the person she wants to be by playing the part of happy-go-lucky Anne. She longs for a time that she can finally allow her true self to come to the surface, but she feels trapped by the expectations of the others in the annex. However, Anne's chance to become her true self was cut short when the Nazis arrested her on August 4, 1944. She was separated from her parents and sent with Margot to the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in Germany. There, she was briefly reunited with her friend Hanali one last time, but lamented that she believed her family was all dead and she was alone in the world. Then she died in February or March of 1945 during a typhus epidemic at the camp. Of the 5 members of the Little Dipper -2 ping pong club, only Hanali and Jacques survived. In fact, they're still alive at the time this script was written, and by contrast, died at the age of 15. But if not for the Nazis, she could have been 93 today. Which is a reminder that this is not ancient history. We're still living in the shadow of the Holocaust to this day. Anne's diary can be at times hilarious and profound, petty and forgiving, hopeful and full of despair. And though the knowledge of her impending fate hangs over the entire book, Anne's personality and dreams shine brightly through her words. There were 6 million Jewish people, just like Anne, with their own personalities, dreams, and lives, murdered in the genocide by the Nazis. But by reading Anne's diary for ourselves and learning of her experiences through her eyes, we, the readers, can feel a fraction of the enormity of the Holocaust in a way that only a first-hand account can deliver. Also, Yom HaShoah, Israel's Holocaust Remembrance Day, is coming up at the end of April, which means now is the perfect time to honor Anne Frank, the residents of the secret annex, and every person murdered in the Holocaust by reading or rereading her diary. May their memory be for a blessing. Once again, thanks so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's literary discussion. But what's HelloFresh, you ask? Why, it's a tasty meal kit delivery service that can keep your belly super happy while also saving you a bunch of time by eliminating tedious trips to the grocery store and stressful meal planning. You get all of the ingredients you need to prepare delicious meals delivered right to your door, and you're eating in a half hour or less. Now with 50 different meal options available each week, I'm always excited to try out new flavors. However, the second I saw their pork bulgogi bowls back on the menu, I snatched those up right quick because I've been dying to make them again. They are so good. Whereas Jeff copied my reordering homework and doubled down on his springtime specialty of citrus pork tacos for out on the patio, which meant Zoe and I only had to hop 2 fences to take part. I mean, if he didn't want us there, why would he keep ordering the family size? Fence hopping fitness aside, another thing HelloFresh gets right is their continued work on the sustainability and freshness fronts. Their produce goes from farm to your front door in under a week. The ingredients are all pre-portioned, which means less food waste. And the carbon footprint of their service is actually 25% smaller than that of meals made from store-bought groceries. And now is an awesome time to try HelloFresh for yourself because they've lined up a very delectable deal. All you gotta do is go to HelloFresh.com and use the code ExtraCredit16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts, all with free shipping. Oh yeah, you heard me right, hungry people. You can get a ton of free food while supporting the content you love, the environment, and most importantly, your grumbly tummy. Again, that's 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts at HelloFresh.com using the code ExtraCredit16. Your time and taste buds will thank you. And once again, so will we. Thanks so much. Greetings, Ahmed Ziad, Turk, Alicia Bramble, Angelo Valenciana, Casey Muscha, Dominic Valenciana, Joseph Blame, Kyle Murgatroyd, and O'Reels1. Y'all are the best!